You talk about your dad, and I'm curious the biggest lesson he taught you, whether in a good way or a bad way, that you said, this is something he did positive that I'm going to do as a father, or something that I'll never do as a father that he did. What is that lesson, and what has he taught you about fatherhood now that you are a father?
The importance is two things, one positive, one negative. The positive part is he taught us the importance of laughter because my father was funny.
Really?
And, you know, he was exceptional in sports, and he was an exceptional calypso dancer. He could sing, and he would make people laugh and smile all the time. He could light up a room. Uh-huh. And, you know, the importance of laughter, you could bring up a lot of gifts, but somebody's ability to make other people laugh is one of the greatest gifts you could ever give anybody. That's a positive. The negative is that, and it answers the question about fatherhood, he taught me what not to be as a father. My father, this is in the book, it just wasn't good. I loved him, I always will, but I didn't shed a tear when he was gone.
Wow.
The only reason I see him at his gravesite is because he's buried next to my mother.
Wow.
If he wasn't, I wouldn't go visit him. We didn't have that good of a relationship. It's not hatred, but there is a significant and flagrant lack of respect. My lack of respect for my father has very little to do with me. Mm-hmm. It has very little to do with how he, quote unquote, treated my mother. Because my philosophy is don't put your hands on a woman. He put his hands on my mother, we'd have killed him. Mm-hmm. But he never did that. And he preached against it. So I give him credit for that. But what he did with my mother, he forced her to be the man of the house. Now, I know that's not the popular thing to say in this woke culture. I'm not apologizing for that. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing for a woman to have a career, to make money, to provide for her family. I admire it. I respect it. I throw no shade on it. But I am unapologetic about the fact that if you can afford it, it is your responsibility as a man to provide for your family.
Especially if your wife just has 6 kids.
Yes.
You've got to take care of
That's right.
nurturing and feeding and developing.
It's your job.
Yeah.
It's your job. You understand? I mean, any help that she could give you is great, but the responsibility is supposed to be yours. Yeah. And if you can't do it, you scratch, claw, and even die trying. Wow. One of my favorite all-time shows was the show Good Times. Mm-hmm. James Evans Sr. You know, he lived in the projects in Chicago. They had to scratch and claw. They barely had enough money to feed their family. It was an apartment in the projects. But that's what they had to deal with. He was the one out there busting his butt every day to make sure that his wife and his children were provided for. Wow. I have 2 daughters, and I tell people all the time, if they're hungry, it's because I'm starving. I don't eat. Wow. I don't eat unless I know they eat.
Wow.
I'm not comfortable until they're comfortable. I'm not providing for me until I provide for them. When they're taken care of is when I get to take care of me. The priority is them because they didn't ask to be here. They're mine and they're my responsibility. Wow. And I live by that. Wow. And so to me, any man that thinks differently is not the kind of man that I respect.
Sure.
And my father was not that kind of man.
Right, right. Do you feel like something unlocked inside of you when you had your first child? Because you, at the time, if the timeline is right, you got lost the job, and then the child was on the way, the first child. Was there a new
She
power?
had just arrived. She had just arrived, yes.
Was there a new power or energy or something that...
It was pure fear.
Really?
It was pure fear, Louis.
Wow.
I've never been more scared in my life. I've never been more scared in my life. I was petrified. And I held on to that because regardless of what I felt I didn't deserve from ESPN letting me go, the reality of the situation was it was the time I was living in. And I had to find a way to feed my child. It's just that simple. And I was scared to death.
Wow.
To death. I mean, I really, really, really was. I had saved up money. I had saved up well over $500,000. And I was living off of it. Mm-hmm. You know.
You see that go down every month.
You see that go down every month. And it's dwindling. And you're like, oh, you know, and it was really, really, really scary. And so for me, that's what it is now. Anything that I have now is dressing. Because to me, I can give up a couple of my cribs. You know, I can give up the cars. I can give up any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. What I can never give up is making sure that my daughters are provided for.
Yeah.
That's my number one responsibility. Everything comes after because I'm a man. And that's my responsibility.
Yeah.
And if I were to get married, even though unmarried, I'm still like that. But if I was married, I'd be even more like that. It's my job to handle my responsibility for my wife. Now, some people be like, man, please, you got some men out there that's like, hey, man, please pay some bills. What you think?
Sure.
I don't think like that because anytime I see a woman pushing and struggling or whatever, I think about my mom and what my mother was forced to go through.
Right.
And so for me, that is everything to me. You do what you want.
Right.
I'm talking about what you have to do. I'm not talking about doing what you want. To me, if you are a man and you have a woman in your life, you have a family, she should have to pay bills.
Right.
That's your job. That's just the way I am.
Sure. I love this.